Hello everyone. So it is now the beginning of 2025, and so I have been looking back over all of the makeup and skincare products that I tried throughout 2024, and I counted them up and I realized that there have been 176 new makeup product releases that I tried throughout the year, and then there also have been some skincare releases and a few new fragrances. And in my previous video, what I did is to talk about the disappointments that I experienced throughout the year. And in this video, what I'm going to be doing is talking about the products that I have liked, or in some cases, the products that I have loved. So I will be doing this speed review style, so I'll be talking briefly about each of these products and about my conclusions about them. And I also will be picking out the top 30 products that I think are really outstanding. And then I also will be picking my favorite product of the year. And so you can think about what your favorite product is or try to guess what I will pick. And so first, a little bit of information about me. I am 60 years old and I have dry and very sensitive skin. And when I look at makeup products, I'm especially interested in whether or not they work well with my maturing skin. And in addition, my skin is very sensitive and I have a zero tolerance policy in terms of not using products that do irritate my skin. So I'm very careful in terms of the products that I purchase. And I have realized that there are certain ingredients that always do irritate my very sensitive skin. And I know that many other people are also very sensitive to those particular ingredients. So I just don't talk about products that contain those ingredients on this channel. And then in addition, I tend to be a person who likes a pretty subdued makeup look. And I also am looking to not spend too much time putting on makeup. And then in addition, I just have tried so many products at this point that I do have a pretty high standard in terms of what I expect from products in terms of their performance compared to other products that I have already tried. So for each of the products that I have tried out, I have given them a grade. So the grades that I give are either A+, which are products that I think are really terrific and that I actually do use on a regular basis when I'm not just testing them. And then A, which is a product that I also think is wearable for me and that I wouldn't mind wearing, but that I don't think is as good as some of the other options that are out there. And so I therefore don't reach for them that much. A B product is one that I think could probably have some benefits for some people, but it doesn't seem to really be meeting my particular needs for one reason or another. And then products that do cause irritation, I just put them in their own category. And then, as I said, there are 30 products that I picked out of all of the ones that I tried that I think are the most outstanding products of the year. And so I just noted those as being my top picks for the year. And one thing that I will mention here is that I tend to shoot most of my videos in an area of my house that I have a really good light from a lot of skylights and a lot of windows. And it seemed that that worked fine in the summer, but now it's winter and it seems like I'm getting an awfully lot of glare on the screen in back of me. So I guess maybe it's because the sun is at a different angle than it was during the summer. And so I think that I'm going to have to work really hard to figure out how to block some of these skylights so that I still get some good natural light, but that I'm not getting this glare at certain times of day. And so I'm going to work on that. And so for the meantime, I hope you will put up with the glare in the back of my video for this particular one anyway. And so let's talk first about a few of the skincare products that I tried out during the year. I did notice that during 2024 that there was one trend that I really thought was terrific, which was the release of some unscented creams that serve either as what they're calling barrier creams or else peptide creams. And there were several of my favorite brands that did release these creams, and I think that these have all been really, really good for my skin, and they are at what I consider to be an acceptable price. So the first one is the Super Peptide and Ghost Berry Barrier Repair Cream from Alpine Beauty, and I do think that this one has been really, really terrific on my skin. And Drunk Elephant, this is a brand that in the past I've had some real problems with many of their products. A lot of them have been really irritating for me, but this new product, which is called Bora Barrier Repair Cream. This one actually has what I consider to be a really, really good ingredient list, and this one has not caused any irritation for me at all, and I've really liked this one. And then Lion Pose is a brand new brand that came out with a sunscreen that I thought was quite good. And they also have a new product that's called Pep Talk Biopeptide Barrier Cream with triple lipid complex. And so I have tried this one out, and this one I have also really, really liked. And then finally, RMS, of course, is a brand that I really, really like, and they came out with a new product. This is actually made in Switzerland, and it is called the Cockadoo Luxe Cream. And this is a pretty rich cream, in my opinion, and it tends to be a little bit on the wet side, so I really just use this one at night. And I do think that it has been particularly good for my skin when the winter has come, and it does have a lot of good skincare ingredients in it. And then Charlotte Tilbury recently came out with the product that is called the Magic Water Cream. And unlike the Magic Cream, which they had previously, this one does not have any fragrance in it. And I think that the ingredient list looks really, really good, and that has worked well on my skin. And at first I thought that $100 was really outrageous for a product like this, but then I realized that they had recently become a sister company to Dr. Barbara Sturm, which also has creams with pretty clean ingredient lists and that look fairly similar to this one. And so I am being a little bit more optimistic about the possibility of maybe there being a reason to purchase this Charlotte Tilbury cream, because compared to the Dr. Barbara Sturm one, it does kind of look like a bargain. And then next for eye creams, and so some of the creams that I've used this year, one is from Alpine Beauty, and this is actually a cream that is pretty pink, and it is supposed to be sort of like a little bit of a color corrector for day use, I think, and this is called the Instant Bright Eye Peptides and Niacinamide Cream, and this one does seem to be nice to me. Dr. Barbara Sturm is a company that I have been trying out a number of their products, and one of the new products that they came out with this past year is called the Super Anti-Aging Eye Serum. And so this is a product that what I tend to do is to mix it into one of my eye creams, because it tends to be very concentrated and it has a lot of hyaluronic acid type of ingredients in it. And then it has some additional ingredients in it that I think that they don't necessarily include in the hyaluronic acid that they sell for use on the face in general. And what they told me when I purchased this is that you just really need to use a very, very small amount of this for use on your eyes. And I think that's absolutely right. And that this bottle will probably last me for years, and that is fine. And I do mix it with an eye cream, and so then it goes on very nicely. And I think as long as you're using a cream that doesn't include silicones in it, I think that mixing a serum with a cream can be a very nice thing. And so far I've really liked this, and I've used up, over the period of using it every night for about 2 months, I've used up this much of the bottle. So I do think that it will be lasting me for quite a while. But it is $300 for that bottle, so it is very pricey. And Ilia came out with a new cream that is called the Bright Start Activated Eye Cream, and this one actually seems to have been nice also. And then I also am a fan of the Augustinus Bader Rich Cream, and so I did use that on my eye area, and I didn't think it was problematic. But this year they did come out with a new eye cream that is kind of thick, and this is called the Rich Eye Cream. And so I did buy this, and I think the price was $205. And it seems very nice to me, and it does seem very gentle to my eyes. They do seem to be suggesting that you don't want to put your finger in here, and they gave this applicator, and it's a little bit odd because I think the applicator, you're just supposed to stick it in here and then pull it out in whatever amount of the product you have on the tip of this little metal wand. You just put that under your eyes, and I guess it works okay. I'm not sure that would be my ideal, and I think that if they were going to do this, that it would have been nice to have somewhere on this bottle to put this wand rather than just sticking it on the top or something. But in general, I do think the product in this is very nice, and so far I have been enjoying it. And then there are a few more skincare products that I have tried out that I have also liked. So Ilia actually has done a nice job with their skincare this year. I'm not always that much of a fan of their makeup products, but their skincare seems to be really a strong point for them since they have started to move into that area this past year. So the Ilia Soft Foam Cleanser, I think that that is a very nice foamy cleanser that I can use during the summer months. I tend to use it a little bit less during the winter months because I really just use a cream cleanser. But as foamy type cleansers go, I really, really like that one quite a lot. And then next we'll move into sunscreens. So the first one is from RMS, and this one is called Sun Cover Up Super Tint. And this one is supposed to, I guess, be a tinted moisturizer, but unlike many tinted moisturizers, I think this one is really designed to serve primarily as a sunscreen and then also to provide a little bit of covering benefits. And this is one of the few tinted moisturizers that I actually feel like I can put on the amount of sunscreen that you're supposed to be able to put on in terms of getting the stated SPF. So this is supposed to be SPF 50, and so in order to get that, then just for your face, you're supposed to put on a 1/4 teaspoon. And when I have tried to put on approximately a 1/4 teaspoon, maybe a little bit less, I do think it has worked out okay for me. And so that has been a real accomplishment for this brand. And it does have some tint in it, but I think that the level of the tint that is in it is supposed to be fairly low. And it does have just zinc oxide as the sunscreen. It doesn't have any chemical sunscreens, and the zinc oxide is non-nano, but I think that it's supposed to be a new form of zinc oxide that does not have a white cast. And that is actually of all three of the sunscreens that I'm looking at, I think that all three of these have that same kind of new zinc oxide. And then the other two products that I have really liked, the first one is from The Outset, and that one has an SPF of 30, and that one does not have a tint in it, but I did find that when I put it on my skin in the recommended quantity, that it actually looked okay. And then the third product is another one from the Lion Pose, and that one is called Ghostbuster. That Ghostbuster one does have a pretty high SPF, and it also has a smell of cucumber, and not everyone would like that, I don't think, but I think that that is another sunscreen that is a viable alternative as far as I'm concerned. And then in terms of fragrance, I have decided that really my favorite fragrance of all time is this RMS Plus Heretic Scarlet Moon. And so this is 100% natural. It doesn't have any synthetic fragrance in it at all. And I think that compared to really almost all of the other natural fragrances that I have ever encountered, I think that this one is really sophisticated. I can't even necessarily place exactly what this smells like, but I do think that it smells really, really wonderful. And I think that it is one that I have been able to wear really frequently. So to the extent that I have ever really had what I consider to be a signature scent, this is really turning into it. Now there's another fragrance from a company called Jo Malone, which is called Frangipani. And in the past, I don't think that I've ever come across any Jo Malone fragrances that I think are 100% natural. And I am not absolutely sure that this one is 100% natural, but I am fairly certain that's probably the case because it actually does smell really nice to me, and the ingredients in it are ones that I think are easily obtained from natural sources. There's nothing like musk or anything that you wouldn't be able to get from a natural source, and I do think that that has been really, really pleasant for me. And then there's also a new fragrance from Seven Virtues, and you know Seven Virtues used to have all natural fragrance, but recently they have come out with some that have synthetic fragrance in them that I thought have smelled absolutely awful. But this most recent one is called Candied Lychee, and I was really suspicious about that, but I did try it out in the store on a couple of different occasions, and I think that one hasn't been too bad. So I think that might be 100% natural, and I do think that it has been worth my trying out, and then I may end up purchasing it, and then I think it might be worthwhile for other people that are looking for natural fragrances to try out. Now, in terms of primers, Ilia has another skincare product that they brought out that I think is also really terrific. And this is called the Base Face Milk, and I have been using this as a primer under basically every kind of makeup that I have tried, including foundations and concealers, and when I haven't been wearing any base products. And I think that this has been really terrific, regardless of what I've been using it under. I think it does give some nice moisture to my skin in terms of hyaluronic acid, that kind of hydration. And I do think that it has also done a good job of protecting my skin from whatever kinds of mild irritants might be present in terms of the products that I'm using. And it also, when it comes to blush, it has helped a little bit in terms of the blush not sinking into my skin and disappearing. So for all of those reasons, I think this has been really terrific, and it has not irritated my skin at all. And I do think that it has been really good for my skin. And so I have tried a number of other products that are supposed to be similar to this one, and I haven't liked any of them nearly as much. And then also this year, Merit came out with a new primer type product, and this is called the Merit Great Skin Priming Moisturizer. And this one is much thicker and richer, and it reminds me in terms of the consistency to, for instance, the Bobbi Brown face base type of a product. I think that the Merit one is less irritating. I wouldn't say that it is as okay for my skin as the Ilia one, but I think it is one that I can use. And I've heard some people with sensitive skin say that they've done okay with this Merit one, and I have heard some people say that they don't think it has been that great for them. Now, in terms of foundations, there are two that I think are outstanding enough that I think that they're worthwhile in terms of getting a Top Picks award. So the first one is the Patrick Tom Major Skin Foundation, and I think that especially if you have dry skin as I do, and if you have skin that is more mature, as mine is more mature, that this can be a really good product. And I do think that when I put this particular product on, that my skin does look really, really good, and it hasn't been irritating for me at all, and I do think that it's actually been a little bit good for my skin in terms of having it on. Now, I do think that personally that it does really need to have some kind of a setting spray or a powder over it, and I think a setting spray is a better idea. And it does not have any silicones in it, and so that makes me much more comfortable wearing it because I prefer not to wear silicones except on an occasional basis. And then the other foundation that I have found to be a real breakthrough in terms of providing a new benefit to the market is this Natasha Denona High Glam Powder Foundation. And I don't think that it makes my skin look worse. I don't think it's drying. I think it looks really nice on my skin. I was able to get a really good shade match for my peach colored type skin. And in general, I think that this is really a very, very good product, even for people that have dry and mature skin. And I think that especially for travel purposes, this one is really terrific. And then another product that I actually am liking that was reintroduced this year by Chantecaille is their Just Skin skin tint. And this one has an SPF of 15, but I would never use that as trying to get any kind of sun protection. It's a very low SPF, and of course I wouldn't be using very much of this on my skin. But I do think that it is very attractive when I do put it on my skin. I do think it looks really pretty. And I also think that it doesn't exacerbate the look of my wrinkles. I don't think it's been at all irritating to my skin. And I think that the skincare ingredients that are in this probably are helpful. And that in general, this has been a really nice sort of general all-purpose type of a no fuss, no muss type of a foundation. And then the other foundation this year that I actually liked the most, that was a surprise for me, was the Huda Easy Blur Foundation. But this one has been really nice. I think it looks really nice on my skin. I don't think it makes me look older. I don't think that my skin reacts in a bad way to it. And it does have some silicones in it, but occasionally I do wear a silicone foundation if I want to look particularly nice. And I do think that this product does a good job of providing a decent amount of coverage that makes it worthwhile for me to wear a silicone foundation like this. And then in general, my skin does look quite a bit better if I am wearing this than if I'm not wearing a foundation usually. And then in terms of other silicone foundations that are in liquid form, there were a few skin tints that were released this year, and I kind of think of all of these as being sort of in the same category. So one is the Dolce & Gabbana Blueberry Neutra tint, one is the Kylie Cosmetics Skin Tint, one is the Sigma Skin Perfector Tint, and one is the Lisa Eldridge Seamless Skin Tint. And all of these do have silicones in them. They have quite a lot of silicones in them. And my experience is that all of these perform fairly similarly to one another. Now, I do think that the Lisa Eldridge one has gotten quite a lot more hype than the others, and so I've done quite a few side-by-side comparison tests where I've put the Lisa Eldridge on one side and put one of those other foundations on the other side and worn them all day and looked very carefully in the mirror and done footage. And I don't really think that the Lisa Eldridge one is looking any better on my skin than the others. I feel like they're all looking pretty much the same as one another. I don't feel like the Lisa Eldridge one is better for my skin than the others. I feel like they're all fairly similar. But in general, I don't feel like no matter how much I use that I'm getting that much coverage. I don't feel like my skin is really that crazy about any of those foundations. And I think that they're all kind of equivalent. And actually, I think that of those four, that the ones that my skin probably likes the most are the Kylie one and maybe the Sigma one. But in any case, I kind of don't see myself using any of those products because I don't feel like they're giving much coverage. And I also don't feel like they're helping my skin that much. And I don't really like using silicone foundations for no reason. But a lot of people, I think, would, if they do like silicone-based skin tints, then I think all four of those are pretty good. And then About Face has a foundation that doesn't have any silicones in it. I think it looked okay on my skin. I think that my skin liked it okay. It's not one that I like enough that I would actually wear it very often when it wasn't for filming these videos. But I think that that's not a bad product, and it's certainly a very good price. And then there's one more product, which is the One Size Turn Up the Base Full Bead Foundation from a makeup artist named Patrick Starr. And that is actually a very, very nice foundation if you want something that's more like full coverage. And I think that that is actually a foundation that my skin did like quite a bit, so I'm not really interested in something that's full coverage, but that would be the one I would turn to if I wanted it. The Fenty Soft Lit Foundation, that one is very nice from really every aspect, except for the fact that it tends to stick to my skin in a way that I really can't get it off entirely, regardless of what kind of makeup removers I use. And that is really unusual, and so therefore I won't be using that one. But I do think a lot of people like that one, and I think it's for good reason. Otherwise, it performs very nicely. And then finally, there's one from Kylie Cosmetics, which is a regular foundation rather than the skin tint. This is only available on the Kylie website. I didn't think that this one looked great on my skin. I found it to be very slightly irritating, and in general, I think it's probably not meant for me. I think it's probably meant for people that have skin that is younger than mine and also not quite as sensitive as mine. And then in terms of concealers, as I say, there's a few more concealers that I am just finishing up testing and that I will do a full video on. But there's two concealers that actually are color correctors or neutralizers that I do think are really strong additions to the market. So one of them is the Jones Road Neutralizer Pencil. So this comes in a lot of different shades that are appropriate for people who have different skin tones and who also have different kinds of issues with regard to what color their under eye circles are. And I have really found that this kind of a neutralizer pencil has been really terrific for me, and it has made a really big difference in terms of allowing me not to have to use as much other kinds of products under my eyes in order to cover up my dark circles. And so I've been really happy with that. You do need to use this pencil over a nice little eye moisturizer because it does go on pretty dry. And so I do always use the Jones Road eye moisturizer. And I think that that is very nice. But in general, I think this is a really terrific product and that it is deserving of being in the top 30 for the year. Now, personally, I do prefer these little sticks to a liquid concealer in terms of things to put under my eye. But if you do like a liquid product under your eye, then you may want to try the Calorie Hideaway Concealer, which does come in neutralizer type shades, either pinks or peach or yellow. And so if you can find one that does a good job in terms of neutralizing your own issues under your eyes, then I think that that can serve as a good substitute for the Jones Road one for people that prefer to have a liquid product. Now, in the past, before this year, I never found that there was a liquid concealer that worked very well in terms of my putting it in my eye area, under my eyes, or over in this part of my eyes. I always have felt that those kinds of concealers always did emphasize the texture of my under eye area and make my wrinkles look a lot worse. But this year, there have been several breakthrough products that have come out that I think have worked pretty well in terms of fulfilling all of those functions, and that I can put them in both my under eye area and also use them as an eyelid primer. And I think of these products, the one that has gotten sort of the most attention for that purpose is the one from Sarah Creel. And this one seems like it's a little bit expensive, but you actually do get quite a lot of product in this container. And I do think that as a general purpose concealer for me to use in my under eye area on a spot basis, on the rest of my face, and on my eyelids, this has been really terrific for all of those purposes. And so I've been really happy to have this new brand come out on the market, if only for that one reason. Now, on the other hand, I think that this new concealer from Say, which is called the Slip Tint Concealer, I think that this one has been almost as good as the Sarah Creel one, and it hasn't gotten nearly as much attention. But for my purposes, I think that this is a surprisingly good concealer. And it's actually not all that much less expensive than the Sarah Creel one on a per gram basis. There's just a little bit less of it in the container. And then the third concealer that I've used a lot this year that I think also fits into this category is the Westmont Atelier concealer. Now that one is a bit thicker, and so I have to be a little bit more cautious in terms of not putting on too much of it on my under eye area. But what I have found is that if I am a little bit cautious with it, that it actually doesn't emphasize my wrinkles either, and that it works fine for my eyelid area and the rest of my face as well. And then another concealer that I think has been pretty good is the new Laura Mercier concealer. I think that this one has been fine in terms of using it on a spot basis on most of my face. I think it's been okay in my under eye area, not as good as these other ones. And I haven't been able to use that one as an eyelid primer because I think it's just a little too irritating. Now, for setting sprays, I had never in the past used any setting spray that I thought was acceptable at all. I found that almost all of them irritated my skin for one reason or another. And if they didn't irritate my skin, then I found that they did nothing. But this year, there were two setting sprays that came out on the market that I have found that performed quite well and also that haven't been irritating at all. I think the one that I like the most is the Makeup by Mario one, and I have used this one an awfully lot. And I do think that when I have particularly with a foundation that is like the Jones Road foundation or the Makeup by Mario foundation, as you would expect, or this new Patrick Ta foundation, that does not set down very well, that this has been a real lifesaver in terms of making those foundations work better. And I'm not sure that the NARS product works quite as well as this Makeup by Mario, but it is quite close and it hasn't been irritating at all. And I think that that one is also a very good substitute. Now, in terms of powders, I'm going to go out on a limb here and name as one of my top 30 products of the year a product from NARS that is called Interstellar Light Reflecting Prismatic Powder in a pressed form. And I actually haven't heard anybody else talk about this, and it is not at Sephora, at least not yet. And I just picked it up because I tend to pick up everything new that NARS releases just because I am so excited about that brand. But this product, I feel like every time I have put it on my skin, I have been just really, really impressed at how my skin is looking. So this is a product that has this purple color swirled with a peach type color, and so maybe that's part of it, is that those colors actually do look nice. in terms of putting a nice little finish on top of whatever makeup I'm wearing or on top of my foundation or just my skin in general. But so far, I really do think that it's doing something for me, even though it's very subtle. Then the other two powders that I think have been really outstanding this year, there is a new one from Makeup by Mario, and that is a powder that I think also works really well on top of a foundation that tends to be a little oily or a little bit wet. And so if I don't want to be using a setting spray, then I think that that is a viable alternative. And then the other powder that I tried this year that I think is very nice is the new fragrance-free version of the Huda powder. So I think the Huda powder, which has talc in it, I think that that one is the most popular powder on the whole Sephora website, but that one has fragrance in it. But if you order it directly from the Huda website, now you can get a fragrance-free version, and it comes in all of the same colors that the one with the fragrance comes in it. And I was surprised at how much I liked that product as well. And then a few other products that I tried this year. I tried the RMS Hydra setting powder. I think that that is a perfectly fine sort of general purpose powder. It's sort of equivalent to what the Kosas powder would be if it were in loose powder form. I do feel like I like the Kosas version and also the Mob Beauty version a little bit better than I like the RMS version, but I think the RMS version is perfectly nice also. And Laura Mercier also has a new pressed powder that is called Ultra Blur, and I've only had a little sample of that, and so I've tried using that, and I think it seems fine. I don't feel like it seems good enough that I want to run to the store and buy a full-size one, but I think it's been okay. And then finally, there was a powder from Dolce & Gabbana that I tried, which is called the Fig Skin Perfector. And this, again, is supposed to be a finishing powder, and so it's a little bit similar to that NARS powder, except that in this case it's like an all-white color. And I think that it was okay. I just don't like it as much as I like that particular shade in that NARS powder. Now, in terms of face palettes, of course, Hourglass launched their holiday face palettes, and I think that those actually seemed fairly nice. I finally realized that they look nicer on camera than they do in person, so that gives me a understanding of why people like them so much. But I did try out all three of those palettes in the store on a number of occasions, and I think that they were perfectly nice, and I think that the palette that I had last year was okay. But to tell you the truth, I didn't really use that palette from last year that much, and I didn't really anticipate using the ones this year, and so I didn't go ahead and buy those this year anyway. And then there is a YouTuber named Michelle who has a channel that is called Mature Makeup Masterclass, and she came out with a palette through Mob Beauty that is called French in 5, and so I did give that a try, and I thought that was very nice. I actually enjoyed using that, and I thought it was one that I could get kind of a French look that wasn't overdone and that didn't sort of run away with my look. And being able to put on the red lipstick with my finger, I thought that was kind of, from a palette form, I thought that was a little bit of a stroke of genius, and I did enjoy using that product. And then there were a few other palettes that were released last year that I sort of liked. So one was the Fit Glow Multi-Use Ceramide Cream Palettes. I did buy that one, and I used it occasionally, but it wasn't one that I found that I reached for all that much. Ilia had a palette that was called the Ethereal Baked Face Palette that I did try out in the store fairly extensively, and I thought it was nice, but I didn't think that I actually needed to buy it. I kind of liked the formula for some of those baked powders, but that I didn't necessarily like all of the colors that were in there in terms of how they worked on my skin. But I would like to see Ilia come out with some more of those same powder as in that formula, because I think the formula actually does have some good potential. And then NARS came out with a holiday palette that was called the Pure Luxury Face and Eye Palette, and I actually did like the color story on that one. I think that that one is a palette that's a little difficult to pick up. And so I think that if you were going to use that one, you kind of should use a kind of a dense brush or maybe a natural hair brush. And then in terms of bronzers, there were quite a few bronzers that were released this year. So one that I really liked was the one from Dolce & Gabbana, and this is called Face and Eyes Match, and I actually purchased 2 different shades of these, and I think in terms of bronzers that I can use that will make my skin look a little bit more tanned, just in general, like I actually have a regular tan without trying to do any sculpting or anything like that. I think that these have been really ideal for me in terms of both the formula and in terms of the color. So I did get 2 different ones. So I have this one, which is a little bit lighter, and I have this one, which is a little bit darker. And so depending on what I want my skin to look like, I think that both of these look really, really nice on my skin. And I do think that they are a good color, at least for me, and that they don't look orange at all, but that they do look a little tiny bit peachy, and that they look very natural, and they're not gray at all. And then the other product that I think is an outstanding bronzer for the year is this one from RMS. And this one I think of as a little bit different. I think of this more as being like a blush almost, or a bronzy blush with a tiny little bit of highlight in it. And so this is a bronzer that has just a little bit of reddishness in this particular shade of it, which is called Beach Walk Betty. And I do think that this is a bronzer that really almost anyone seems to be able to wear, regardless of what their skin undertone is or their skin tone, because it does have that little bit of reddishness in it. And so for people who have lighter skin, it works more like a blushy bronzer. And for people that have darker skin, it works a little bit more like a highlighting type of a bronzer. But in any case, I do think it has a lot of wide appeal. And then there are 3 other shades. So if you have skin that, for instance, there's one that I think is particularly good for olive skin. There's one that's particularly good for yellow skin. And there is one that if you have really dark skin and you're looking for a kind of a reddish bronzer, then you can use that one. And I think in terms of giving myself a middle of the summer, bronzy, slightly sunburned, really pretty type of a look, I think this one is really nice, and I can use it on its own, but I also often will use it in combination with the other powder bronzer. So I'll put the Dolce & Gabbana one on first, and then I'll put this one on over the top of it, and I think that they do look really pretty together. And I have heard an awful lot of rave reviews of this product from a wide variety of people. Another product that I also have liked that's been a matte bronzer is the YSL All Hours Hyper Bronzer. And that one I don't like quite as much as the Dolce & Gabbana one, but it's close. And I think that the main thing that I don't like about that one as much is the packaging. I think that the packaging is supposed to look like a YSL clutch, but I think it looks kind of cheap with the fake leather and all the plastic in it. And so I don't really enjoy using it for that reason, but I do think that the formula is fairly nice and the colors have worked fairly well for me. And Chantecaille had a product that's called the Sunstone Bronzer, and that one I tried out at the Blue Mercury store, and I did really like that product. It's the same formula as the blush that I have from Chantecaille from the Sunstone collection, and I thought that that bronzer is very, very similar to the RMS one. I don't think I liked it quite as much as the RMS one, and it was very expensive, but I think that was a nice bronzer also. And then a few other bronzers that I have kind of liked. The IT Cosmetics Sun Blush, that was a blushy product that sort of was halfway between a blush and a bronzer, and I thought that it did look kind of nice on my skin. That's more like a creamy type of a product. And the Glossier Cloud Paint bronzers, I think these are kind of nice also. I still think I prefer the Jones Road liquid bronzers, but I think this is a nice product. This one does have cyclic silicones in it, so apparently they are not planning to sell this in Europe. But I do think that this goes on my skin very nicely, and I think it works nicely over makeup, I guess because of those cyclic silicones. And then next is the blush, and this was a year of blush, and so there's an awfully lot of these that I did try out this year. So of the ones that I've liked the most, the first one is from Chanel, and in the past, of course, Chanel put fragrance in really almost all of their products, and so I wasn't able to use any of them. But I was really happy this year because Chanel did come out with several different blush releases and a couple of highlighter releases that did not have any fragrance in on them and that I have found to be really, really terrific. So the first one is this one from, it's called the Healthy Glow blush from the Le Beige line, and this was a winter release, and so it has this snowflake on it, and I do really, really like the way this performs in terms of how it looks on my skin and how nicely it goes on. And then later in the year I bought this blush, which is in kind of an orange color, that I thought turned out to be really, really terrific for fall, and this one is called Les Terreaux de Chanel. And so I was really, really happy with this because of how nice it looked on my skin and because I thought the color actually worked out really, really well. And there were a couple of other releases. There was one that was Imaginary Garden or something over the summer. And then they had a blush and eye palette that was a holiday release. And they had a highlighter release that was very, very shimmery, apparently, that came out for their holiday release. And then just today I ordered a new little highlighter quad from Chanel that also has no fragrance in it and that I thought looks really pretty. And so I'm looking forward to getting that one and trying that one out on camera. And then another product that I think is worthy of being in my top 30 products for the year are the new blushes from Kosas, and these are called Blush is Life, and they are powder blushes, and they are baked, and they all have these little swirls in them, so they have multiple colors of powder in here. And I was really surprised at how much I liked these. I expected that they would be kind of ordinary, and I think that really compared to many different other blushes that I have tried, that these have been really, really nice, and that they have always looked very nice on my skin, and that I have found it to be particularly easy to get a blush look that is working really well for me. And so I do think that this is a nice formula, and I also do think that part of the reason that they have worked so well is because they have 8 different blushes, and because some of them seem to be clearly designed for people that have lighter skin tone or that want a much more muted blush look, and that the rest of them seem to be designed for people that have a darker skin tone or that want a more vibrant look. And so I personally have purchased actually just 4 of these. I purchased just the ones that seem to be more designed to be more muted. And I actually think that all of these have worked really, really well for me. I am just so surprised at how nicely they have worked for me and how natural they have looked on my skin. And I am able to build them up, but I do feel like it's not something that's building up automatically, that I would need to be working to build them up rather than they're carrying away my look. And then another blush line that I think is really easy to underestimate is the NARS line of blushes. And so I guess they were forced to reformulate because the old version had talc in them, and the European regulations seem to be really restricting the amount of talc that can be used in products now. And so they kind of took their time, and they seem to have really put a lot of effort into reformulating these. And finally they did come out, and well, I think many other companies, when they have reformulated their products, did not have talc in them. People have become really upset because the products were nothing like they used to be. I think in the case of these NARS blushes that they really seem exactly like the old NARS blushes, except there's no talc in them, and everybody seems to be really happy with how they are working for them. And so I think that that is an accomplishment that has been remarkably difficult for other companies to pull off. And so I really admire NARS for being able to do that. The other thing that they did when they did this reformulation is that they revamped their color line a little bit and came out with some new colors that I think are really appropriate. And I think the other thing about this particular blush line that really impresses me is that they are not just offering sort of standard colors, but rather they're offering kind of a variety of colors. And then the other thing that I noticed is that even though they only launched this maybe 6 months or so ago, they have come out with some new additions to the line already. So most recently they came out with a couple of new blushes, and one of them was quite saturated and kind of on the purpley side. And then they came out with this one, which is a really, really light sort of pinkish orchid type of a color that I think actually looks really nice on me. So I'll put a little bit of that on now. just to see what it looks like as an addition. But what I really like about this for me is that there are a number of different colors that I think are not too saturated, but that have really nice shades in them, and where I can get a really subtle but a slightly different look depending on which one I'm using. And then the other blush product that has impressed me the most this year has been the one from Rouge. And I think that the reason that this one has been so impressive to me is because it's very, very similar, in my opinion, to the Westman Atelier Baby Cheeks blushes. And those have been my favorites, and I actually do have all of the shades of those Westman Atelier blushes, and I did a video demonstrating all of those a few months ago. And I've never found another blush that I thought was anything like that. And I do think, though, that these Rouge blushes, which were released a couple months ago, I do think that these are fairly similar, that they're actually a substitute that I feel pretty good about. And except that they are much, much less expensive on both a per gram basis and also in terms of being affordable in terms of just buying the product. And so I think that that is an accomplishment, and I think that it looks like the colors they picked out are very nice. So far I just have this one, which is called Freckle, but I think some of the other colors could be nice too. And I do think that making a blush formula that is this good accessible to more people by having it be less expensive, that is a real accomplishment. And then of all the other blushes, let's just kind of run through these. Of the ones that I really still like enough to keep wearing, I do really like the Chantecaille Sunstone blush, which was very similar, in my opinion, to the RMS blushes. I do think that the Chantecaille formulas can be very nice, but that $75 was pretty pricey. The Danessa Myricks Yummy Skin Lowlighter, that for me actually works just really as a really, really muted blush that looks totally natural on my skin. And it was a surprise to find that product from Danessa Myricks, because most of the products that she sells are so bright that I can't use them at all. But I do actually like that one, and if I'm looking for a particularly natural look, I will reach for that one. Dolce & Gabbana makes a blush that is exactly the same formula as the bronzer that I like so much. I think that it's a little bit less outstanding in a blush, but I do think that the color that I got, which was kind of a peach color, that was very nice, and that's supposed to be called Cheeks and Eyes Match, so the idea is that you could use it on your eyes as well. Haus Labs now has two different blushes that they introduced this year. One was a repackaging of their powder blush, and I do really like that formula, except that it is very, very saturated. And so even though I think that the formula is really, really terrific, and it is a really, really nice matte blush in terms of it being really bright, it only is available in a few really bright colors, and so therefore it's a little difficult for me to work with. And then they also have a line of what they're calling glassy blushes that are also very, very pigmented that came out this year. And I was pretty suspicious about these at first because they are so bright, and especially this one is very, very bright. But it is so glassy and it does blend so easily that I do feel like I can use it. And I put it on today because I was wearing this bright colored sweater. And I do think that, see, it goes on kind of easily, and it doesn't really take over my whole look. And then especially if I brush it in a little bit, I think that it does do a nice job of adding sort of a little pop of color to my look. So I'm not sorry that I bought this one in their holiday kit, but in general, I do think that more muted colors would be a nice thing for them to add to that line. Natasha Denona released this little blush, which is only $20 and is still on the market, and I just picked this up sort of for no reason, and I'm surprised at how well it has worked. It has more blushy shade on one end and more of a highlighter shade on one end, and I find that I can use either type of approach, and it works really well on my skin, and I think that $20 for a product like this from Sephora is actually a really nice price. And another blush product that I purchased this year was from Tom Ford, and this is a blush and highlighting duo that gives a really glassy look to the skin, and I do really like that, and it was a very expensive product, but I did find that when I was using it, even over foundation, that it did look really nice on my skin and that it didn't disrupt my makeup. And then there has been a lot of discussion about the YSL liquid blush, which is called Make Me Blush, mostly about the fact that they are offering this lavender color that I would have never even thought of wearing on my skin. But I did finally get one of their more muted colors. I think that one is called Nude Lavalier, and I actually like it. I think that it looks really natural on my skin. I think it blended in really easily. I think it has a good amount of staying power, and so far my experiences with that have been very good. And then there are a number of other blushes that I think have been fine and that I would be happy to use. So ABH finally came out with a product that I thought was pretty good, and that is the Blurring Serum Liquid Blush. Armani came out with a product that is called the Luminous Silk Cheek Tint, which I thought was okay, but that one I think had a little too much white pigment for me, and so I didn't feel like it worked for me as well as, for instance, the YSL Liquid Blush. And Lawless has a blush that is called Pinch My Cheeks, which is what I consider to be kind of a classic cream type blush that worked perfectly fine. MAC redid their Glow Play blushes, and I finally picked one up, and I thought that that was kind of an interesting formula, and it worked fine for me. And Makeup by Mario has a line of what they call soft pop blush veils, and the previous versions were very, very muted. And so then they came out with some brighter shades, and so I picked up one that was called Strawberry something, Strawberry Sunset, I think. And I tried that out, and I thought that it looked pretty, and I wouldn't mind wearing it on occasion, but I don't feel like it was really special enough that I needed to pick it up after all. And Polite Society has a line of blushes that are called Polite Pops, and those look like they should be a cream blush, and they come in a little stick form, but they feel more like a powder on the skin. And those are okay. And then Ravi Beauty, which is from a YouTuber who I actually really like, they came out with a line of powder blushes, and I think there's just 3 shades of these, and so I picked up one of them that is called Paradise, and I think this is very similar to the Kosas blush, but I think that the Kosas ones are better. And part of that may be that I was able to get shades that were sort of more appropriate for my skin tone because they have more different options available. Now, in terms of highlighters, I guess what I've realized over time is that there are really just 2 different kinds of highlighters that I really, really like. So the first ones are glassy type of highlighters that add a lot of sort of moisture to my skin, as well as maybe a little tiny bit of a shimmer. And then the other kind of category of highlighters that I like are ones that really just look like my skin, that are the same color as my skin, and that are very, very mildly shimmery, and that add just a little tiny bit of an extra bit of a glimmer to my skin. And so of the ones that fit into that second category, I think that one that has been particularly good for me has been this new product from Charlotte Tilbury, which is called Unreal Skin Sheer Glow Tint Hydrating Foundation Stick. So it is very peculiar that they are calling this a foundation stick, because I don't think that anyone would be able to wear this as a foundation stick either all over their whole face or on a spot concealing basis. I think that would be the opposite of what you would want to be doing if you want to conceal things, is to put this shimmery stuff on top of it. But I do think that if I put just a little bit of it on my cheeks as an added sort of topper type of a highlight, I do think that that's really pretty. And the reason is because I was able to choose a shade that was the same color as my skin and that is just very slightly shimmery. And so as highlighters go, this one is one of my favorites, but I think that it was just marketed inappropriately in terms of labeling it as a foundation stick. And then the other highlighter that I found and that I really like that gives me almost exactly the same look, but that is more like a powder product, is this one from Dolce & Gabbana. And so this is actually not metal, it's actually just plastic, and it has this kind of elaborate heart on the top of it, and then it has this heart that is kind of stamped into the highlighter. But in terms of how it goes on my skin, I do think that this is really, really pretty. And that in the end, the look that it gives me is quite similar to the look that I get from that Charlotte Tilbury stick highlighter. Now, whether or not this would work really well for people that have a different skin tone than me, I'm not sure. I do feel like this is very similar to my own skin tone, so it's probably not a surprise that it would be working especially well for me. I'd like to hear from some other people that have a very different skin tone to see if it would work for them. But for me, this one has been really, really outstanding. And as with the other Dolce & Gabbana powder products, I've really liked the formula for it as well. And then continuing in that same vein, NARS came out with a product that was called Light Reflecting Blush, but this actually is just a shimmery version of a regular matte blush that they have that is called Sex Appeal. And Sex Appeal is actually almost the exact same color as my skin as well. And so it is often used, I guess, by women who have very, very light skin who are using it as a very muted blush, and especially in Asia, people who have very, very light skin may use it in that way. For me, I actually could use that as a finishing powder, or because it does have a little bit of oil-absorbing properties in it, and it is matte, but it's almost exactly the same color as my skin. But when you put a little bit of shimmer in that, I think that it really transforms it for me, and it makes it into a highlighter that really looks lovely on my skin and looks totally natural. Now, I think that other people would also be able to use it as a highlighter. It does have a fairly larger amount of shimmer in it that would make it usable for a lot of different people, but I don't think it would look as natural on other people if it didn't match their skin tone. And then RMS has a product that they're calling Hydra Dew Luminizer, and this is actually exactly the same formula as their blushes and as their bronzers, except that it is in highlighter form. And so it really has almost no color to it, and it's very, very light. And so you could use it as a highlighter, but it's very, very muted because there's really not any extra pigment in it, and it's not very shimmery. And you could also use it as a finishing powder, but I think you want to put it on fairly lightly. So they actually sell a fan brush that you could use to put that on, and that I have used, and I do like that one. But what I am hoping is that a new product that maybe they will introduce this year would be a line of those highlighters in different shades that would be appropriate for different skin tones with different kinds of pigments in them, and I think that that would be absolutely fantastic. So maybe we will see that soon. And then there's a few more other highlighters that I've tried out. I tried out the Ilia Light Shift highlighter. I think that this one is very similar to the Charlotte Tilbury foundation stick in terms of how it looks on my skin, but I don't feel like I've liked this one as much. Peter Thomas Roth has an Instant Firm Bounce Stick that I think is one of those wet look highlighters, and I think that one's been fine for me too. I've enjoyed that one, but I don't feel like I've reached for it as much as I had hoped. And then also Rare Beauty came out with a line of products that they were calling blushes in powder form, but that actually seem to be tinted highlighters that seem to be almost as shimmery as their regular highlighters, but with different kinds of colors to them. And I think that if you were looking for a very, very shimmery, a tinted highlighter, that these are quite nice. I am not looking for something that is quite so shimmery, or it's almost on the metallic side. So that is not a product that I'm crazy about, but I think that if you do want a product like that, the Rare Beauty ones are probably fine. And so now let's move on to eyeshadows, and I do think it's the case that this year that big eyeshadow palettes are a lot less popular than they have been in the past, but there have been some good releases nonetheless, and there are some of these that I've been really happy that I have picked up. And so one of these is a collaboration between Lancome and Lisa Eldridge, and this is really the only Lancome product that I feel like I can use in terms of the ingredient lists. And in terms of Lisa Eldridge's company, I do think that she came out with a few good products this year. But in general, the product that I have liked the most from her is actually from Lancome, where she is the creative director. And it seems that once a year, she is creating an eyeshadow palette that actually does have really good ingredients for them, and that I do generally seem to like. So last year, there was one that was a collaboration with the Louvre. And this year, the collaboration is called Celestial Rose. And so I did do a video on this. This was a Christmas release for them. And I do think that in terms of the colors that are in this palette, that this is a really, really usable palette that I have really enjoyed and have gotten quite a bit of use out of. And that it also is a really good formula in terms of the blendability. And in terms of the ingredient list, I think that that has been really terrific for me. And then, of course, last year, the makeup product that I think by far was the most popular and most successful release was the I Need a Nude palette from Natasha Denona. And this year, there were several products that were released by Natasha Denona that I personally really just think of as sort of line extensions to the I Need a Nude palette. So the I Need a Nude palette got a lot of attention in part because it had colors that were somewhat more cool than had often been the case in eyeshadow palettes in recent years. But I also think that it was the case that this was a really successful launch because it really did a very nice job of creating a lot of eyeshadows that were really wearable for a really wide variety of people, including people like me that tend to like really kind of muted eyeshadow looks that are a little more interesting than a plain matte look, but that also tended to be kind of on the subdued side and that were really wearable. And so I did feel like I personally did really well with that palette, and I felt like regardless of which shadows I picked out to kind of throw on my eyes, and regardless of how little time I spent creating eyeshadow looks, that I always created something that I thought was really attractive and really kind of interesting looking in a muted way that really enhanced my features rather than drawing attention away from them. And in terms of that spirit, I think that Natasha Denona has released several new items this year that have carried along that whole idea of how to create a really good eyeshadow look that doesn't look too overblown, but that is really attractive and a little bit interesting looking. And so this year, Natasha Denona came out with two new larger eyeshadow palettes that I think do go along with that spirit. So one of those is the Golden palette, and even though this one does have quite a few shades of brighter gold colors in it, I do think that when it goes on at least my eyes, and I think most people's eyes, that it does look like it's a really wearable shade that you can wear really even during the daytime and even for really casual use. And that is what I put on my eyes today, and so you can see what this looks like when I just threw it on and spent like 1 minute on it. And there is, I think, one shade in here that does have aluminum powder in it, and so I just haven't been using that shade, and I think eventually I will replace it with another Natasha Denona eyeshadow that will fit in that same slot. And then the other palette that I almost didn't pick up because I felt like, gee, this is getting a little repetitive with regard to the Golden palette. This one is called I Need a Warm, and these shades lean not only a little bit more yellow, but they also tend to lean a little bit more orangey. And I was a little bit hesitant about that whole concept, but I think that the coppers in this are, again, not too bright, and that they are all really wearable, and there is a nice mix of mattes and shimmers in here. And in terms of the blendability, I think all of these Natasha Denona shadows are so blendable that even if I put on a few colors that look like they're a little bit darker than what I would usually wear, that I can very easily blend them into a look that I think is really gorgeous and wearable. And so I think of these three palettes not really as separate palettes, but really extensions of one another and getting towards the same kind of look, but sort of variations on a theme. And then for people that want a similar look but don't want to spend as much money or want a smaller item that is easier to carry around, I found that actually the palette that she came out with that was a mini palette early last year, which was called My Mini Dream. That one actually did not look that much like the My Dream palette from Natasha Denona. I really felt like it was much more similar to the I Need a Nude palette with only 5 shades though, and with a much lower price tag. And then for Christmas this year, she came out with a product that's called Baby I Need a Nude Kit. And so this one has 2 different mattes in it and 1 different shimmer. And I feel like in terms of getting the same sort of basic look that I feel like all of these different palettes give in terms of being a variation on a theme, I feel like this particular palette also gives me that, and it was really inexpensive, and it also came with this little eyeliner that is in a taupe shade that I think also goes really well with this palette or with all different other kinds of eyeshadow looks. And I think that as eye pencils go, this one has been one of the terrific ones for me. And I'm very, very picky about eyeliner pencils, and there really are only a few other ones that I really like. And then, of course, the other eyeshadows that I really, really like and that I think are absolutely my favorite eyeshadow formula and that I actually really am the most enthusiastic about of all are the YSL eyeshadow quads. And there is something really magic about this formula that makes it really, really blendable. It does have some talc in it, but I have not found that to be a problem for me at all. And in terms of the looks that these particular eyeshadows have given to me, I have just been really blown away and how much I've enjoyed using these eyeshadows and how coherent each of the eyeshadow quads is and how little time I need to spend in order to make a look that I think is really attractive and slightly distinctive, but for me in a rather muted way. And so last year I think they came out with 5 different versions, and I actually did pick up all 5 of those. And then earlier this year they came out with several more, and I did do a video in the summer where I did try on all of the different versions that I have, but I will show you the ones that they came out with in 2024 that I have picked up. So this one is called Overbrun. So this one is fairly similar to the one that they called Store Dolls, except it's a little bit darker. And this one I think is called Over Doré. So it has a little bit of a gold theme going on in it. So the colors are a little bit cooler. And there is this particular shadow here, which is quite shimmery gold. And I think as gold eyeshadow palettes go, I do really like the Natasha Denona one, but I like this Over Doré one just as much. And then this one is 810, and so this one is called Over Orange or Over Orange. And so this one has one color in here that is kind of a bright orange that still looks really, really good, I think, especially in combination with these other shadows. And then the other shadows are just very slight sort of peach or terracotta type colors. And I think that especially during the summer when I'm wearing certain kinds of clothes, this is a really kind of a pretty and fun look that is not too bright and that I can wear really anytime. And then, you know, if I had different coloring, I think I would really enjoy a smoky eye look, and I do occasionally buy some smoky palettes, but a lot of times they do run away with the look that I get. But this one, I have been surprised, has actually worked okay for me. And so this one is 700, which I think is called Over Noir, which is over black. And then the palette that I think came out in Europe the previous year, but that didn't really get any attention in the U.S. and that wasn't really available at all in the U.S. until last year, is called Palmeraie Skies. And this is a palette that's very blue, and I have a little bit of a penchant for blue eyeshadows anyway, but I was still a little bit afraid of this one because the colors are bright, and 3 of the colors actually are quite bright colors. But I did find that when I used this on my eyes that it worked out really, really well for me, so I was really, really happy about that. And I have found that of all of the shades that they offer, this one is the most distinctive, and yet I still feel like for me it's been really, really wearable. And then this winter they have offered 2 more different new palettes, and I haven't picked those up yet because I feel like I have kind of gone out of control with these eyeshadows, but I still look at them a lot and I still may end up picking them up. I wouldn't be surprised. One was a Christmas palette that is similar to the Over Doré one, but which is maybe a little bit more shimmery and a little bit more gold. And then there is a new one that is in sort of a pastel packaging in terms of the outside of these packages, and it has more like pink colors in it. And then the other eyeshadow palette that came out this year that I did really, really like, but that I feel a little hesitant to recommend as one of my 30 top picks because it's no longer available, is the Byredo Mineralscapes palette. And so I guess I'll make that one just like an honorable mention. But I do think that this is a really gorgeous palette and that the shadows did go on my eyes really well. And I personally used it mostly as a one and done palette. And I think that all of these shades were so beautiful that it worked really, really well as that. And I did do a video on that, and probably Byredo will come out with something that is a similar large palette again this year. They have for the past several years, and I am just hoping that they make more of them available so that more people can get a hold of it. And then in terms of a few other noteworthy palettes that I really did like this year, the Lisa Eldridge Fawn palette. That one is probably a little bit odd because it has several different colors in it that I would really only use as eyeliners that are more like dark browns. But I think that it did end up making a eye look on my eyes that was kind of neutral and kind of pretty, and that I kind of thought of as being like a ballet look if I only used those darker shades as eyeliners. And so I did really enjoy it. Makeup Forever, I tried one of their palettes, which was $32, which I thought was a terrific deal, and I think it's 6 different colors. And it's a very small palette, but I thought it was a really wearable palette, and I really did enjoy that color story in the shade Wherever Walnut. And so that caused me to pick up 2 more different versions of that little palette. So I will be trying out those palettes soon, and we'll give you a report back. And then NARS had a palette that was called St. Paul de Vence that I did a video on almost a year ago for Chinese New Year. And that one is a very subdued color story with kind of peaches and browns that I thought was really nice. And toward the end of the year, NARS did create another eyeshadow palette that I've really liked. That one is called the Afterglow Tempting eyeshadow palette, and that one leans in a little bit towards more orchid type shades. And then Patrick Ta released a line of very controversial, I guess, eyeshadows that were duos, and both of the shades were kind of a shimmery topper type of a shade. And so I tried out one of those, the pink one in the store. I wasn't that crazy about that one, but I did feel like the brown version, which is called Still at the Club, I think. I did feel like that one was attractive enough and had a colors that looked like they would work well enough for me that I did pick that one up. And I actually really, really liked it. I thought that it was really easy to put on, that the looks that I got were totally wearable for both day and evening looks, and that it really didn't look, overly exaggerated on my eyes. I didn't think it was too shimmery. I thought that for the kinds of looks that I would like to achieve, I thought that one was really fantastic. Now, I think that it may be the case that all of the different shades that are in this line, that just because you like one of them may not mean that you like the others, and so I haven't picked up any more since then, but I have really enjoyed the version that I purchased, and I don't think that $42 was too much money in terms of the quality of that particular product. And then there also were several palettes that I actually think are really good in terms of the quality, but that they do tend to be on the smoky side, and I think that they're not so smoky that I can't use these palettes, but I do think that I reach for them not very often, because usually I'm going for more of sort of a daytime look. So the first one is the Dior Backstage Smoky Essentials palette. I do like those Dior formulas very much. I picked up the Makeup by Mario Ethereal Eyes Moonlight palette, and I do like that one, and I do think that it is wearable, but I don't think that it is as useful for me at all as the original Makeup by Mario Ethereal Eyes palette, which I wish they would bring back. And then I picked up one by NARS, which is called Co Wrong Eye Quad, and that one I think is, if you want a slightly smoky look that is not going to be a totally carried away look, I thought that that was a nice option. And then I also picked up the Doll 10 Doll Squad 3.0 palette, which actually is very similar to the Makeup by Mario palette, the Ethereal Eyes Moonlight palette, except that it came out almost a year earlier. And I think that I do like the Makeup by Mario one better, but the Doll Squad one is considerably less expensive, and I thought that it was very nice also, and it did have that same blue in it that the Makeup by Mario one actually ended up having also. And then in terms of eyeshadow singles, Dior reformulated their monocolor singles, and they took out the talc, and I haven't been that crazy about most of the Dior shadows that I've tried at all. I think that the 5-color ones, at least the ones that I've tried, I haven't really liked that formula. But I had a lot more success with the two versions of the monocolor that I tried. So I tried one that was a kind of a satin shadow that was taupe, and then I tried one that was metallic that was a bright blue, and I thought that both of those were actually really nice. Laura Mercier reformulated their caviar sticks to take out the cyclic silicones to comply with European regulations. I did not like the shimmer ones, at least the ones that I've tried, and the matte ones I thought were okay. I thought that reformulation has been fine as far as I'm concerned. And then NARS came out with some new eyeshadow sticks as well. And there were really only matte ones so far. And of the ones they have released, there's really just been 3, I think, that have been colors that I feel like have been appropriate for me. But in terms of those shadows, I've had really, really good luck with them. And I really couldn't ask for them to be better. Jane Iredale also came out with some eyeshadow sticks, and I think that those were okay, but I don't like them nearly as much in terms of the formula as the NARS ones. And then Mob came out with a line extension to their cream clay eyeshadows in shimmer versions, and I felt like for me that those were a little too translucent, and so therefore that if I was going to use them, that I really had to put a primer down, and I thought that they exacerbated the look of the texture on my eyes a little bit more than their matte shadows, which I really do like, but I still think that this was a fairly nice success for Mob in terms of branching out into a new line. And then Lisa Eldridge came out with some liquid silk eyeshadows, and I thought they were okay. I just picked up one of those, and I thought in terms of giving my eyes sort of a neutral look, I thought it was okay, but I do feel like it exacerbated the look of the texture on my eyes a little bit more than I would have liked, and so I haven't reached for that all that much. Now, in terms of mascaras, I will note that I really mostly just like tubing mascaras or mascaras that perform similarly to tubing mascaras, even if they don't actually tube. And so my favorite mascara has been the Westman Atelier I Want You mascara, but of course that one is very expensive. I did try a couple of new mascaras this year that I think did perform similarly to that one. One was this Sarah Creel Back of the Cab mascara. I think this one has been very nice. And I think very similar to that, but at a somewhat lower price, has been the Jane Iredale Lash Fixation. And unfortunately, both of those are only available in black, and I am finding that I would much, much prefer a mascara that is in a brown shade, and so I really hope that more companies will come out with brown mascaras. And one company that did come out with a brown mascara this year was Say in their Mascara 101 formula. And mostly for this video, I haven't talked that much about line extensions in terms of colors, except for the eyeshadows. But in terms of brown mascaras, I think that is so important to me, and it's so hard to find a good mascara that I did want to bring that one up. And I do think the Say mascara formula is pretty nice. I think it's pretty usable for me, and I have been using that one a lot. And at this point, if I buy another mascara that I've already tried before, it'll probably be that Say one, just because I've been liking it so much. Now, in terms of eyeliners, YSL has a new eyeliner line that is called YSL Lines Liberated, and that one is $32, and I thought that the one that I picked up, which was kind of a bronzy color, I thought that was very nice. Kosas came out with a line of eyeliners called Soul Gazer, mostly that those were in very bright colors. I found that it was difficult for me to create a line with those that was as thin as I would like. They tended to create very chunky lines even when I tried to sharpen them with the included pencil sharpener, and so that is not one that I'll probably buy any more in. But if you want a fun eyeliner look that is kind of on the thick side, then that could be one to think about. And Lisa Eldridge came out with a eyeliner that is called Kitten Flick, and that one did not irritate my eyes, so I was really happy about that. I don't feel like I can create a cat eye because of the little wrinkles that I have on the corners of my eyes seem to get in the way of actually drawing a cat line. But if I use that little eyeliner and just draw a line right along my lash line, I do think that it looks nice. And so I think that's a pretty good product, and I was kind of surprised that it didn't irritate my eyes and that it worked nicely for me. And then in terms of brow products, I don't feel like there were that many brow products that were released this year that I really thought were going to be useful. There were a lot of micro pencils, and I didn't really feel like all of those worked very well for me. The one brow pencil that I did try was the Glossier Boy Brow Arch Pencil, and that one is one of those micro pencils, and I don't think I'll be buying it again, but I do think that compared to a lot of the other micro pencils that are out there, that one's performing fairly well. Now, in terms of lip liners and lip crayons, there are a couple this year that I found to be particularly noteworthy. The first one is a recreation of the original Mac Spice by Mob Beauty, and of course the owner of Mob Beauty, his name is Vic Casale, and he was the original formulator of the Mac Spice lip liner before it changed into a totally different color after he left the company. And the version that was recreated by Mob, this is called M1990, and so I have talked about this in several different videos, and I do really like the way that this looks on my lips and the way that it interacts with other types of lip products that I might be putting on with it. And then the other lip pencil or lip crayon that I have found this year to be particularly noteworthy and outstanding has been actually the Pat McGrath Dramatic Lip Pencils. And I think that these have worked for me really, really well, and I don't think that they have gotten nearly as much attention as they deserve. I think that they're sort of equivalent to the NARS Power Matte lip pencils, but I think in terms of how they feel on my lips, in terms of not being too drying, as well as also staying in place really well and providing a really good base for other kinds of products, I think that in general these have been really terrific. And so I have a couple of different shades of those, one of which I am actually wearing today, and I do really, really like them. And it's actually been a very good year for lip liners in general, though, because there have been several others that I've really liked. I have liked the Glossier lip liners. I think that these have a kind of a natural color to my lips, but they are really attractive and they go on really nicely and stay on pretty nicely. I think the Ilia Lip Sketch lip crayons, those actually have been very attractive to me, but what I did find is that if I am using them as my sole lipstick, and especially if I'm using the darker colors, they tend to wear off unevenly and to end up looking kind of not right in terms of there being like a lip line still around my lips and no lipstick on the middle. And so I really only can wear the dark colors if I'm wearing something else over the top of them. I do like the light colors though, and they do feel really good on my lips. The Skin by Kim lip liners, especially if you want a lip liner that is very nude, I think that those are a very nice formula. And the Tom Ford lip liners, those are very expensive. $46 is kind of out of control for a lip liner. But those do go on very smoothly, and they are pretty dry, but they stay in place super well. And so if that's the kind of lip liner that you're looking for, I think that this is a really excellent one. And then in addition, Say came out with a line of lip liners that I didn't feel like I liked nearly as much as the Glossier one or some of the other ones that I have in my collection, but I think they were okay and I would be willing to wear them. And I didn't mention in my disappointments video about Exa, and I did pick up their lip liners, and that one does include, I think, cottonseed oil in it, and those did irritate my lips. And now in terms of lipsticks, I think that this has been a very good year for lipsticks, and that really compared to just a couple of years ago, there are so many more really, really good choices of lipsticks that I actually enjoy wearing and that have performed really, really well for me. And so the first product that I don't think has gotten nearly enough attention is from Augustina Spotter. So Augustina Spotter had a clear lip balm for a while, and this one had their proprietary peptide in it that I feel has made such a difference for me in terms of my skin. And so I did start using that clear lip balm, and I thought that it was actually really, really good for my lips. And then earlier this year, they came out with a line of 3 tinted versions and this was in a collaboration with Sofia Coppola, who is a movie director. And so I did pick up one of these, and I really liked it. And then I was happy to find over the Christmas holiday that they came out with a set of 3 of them. And so I picked up all 3 of these lipsticks, and I think that they have been really terrific. And so they have felt really good on my lips, and I do feel like they have actually made my lips in better shape, so that I haven't needed to put on lip balm in general quite as often. And I do think in terms of how they have looked on my lips, they do look really, really good. And then Isamaya, this is a product that came out at the end of 2023. So this is in the line that is called Isamaya Lips. And this was originally a really controversial and made fun of release because it was released in a lipstick container that was shaped like male genitalia. And so a lot of people were sort of offended or bemused by that. But toward the end of the year, they did come out with these lipsticks in just plain metal containers that include a top. So they are supposed to be refills for the case, but you certainly can use this all by itself. You do not need to buy that case. And I think that these have been such good formulas in terms of acting as really great lips balms, in terms of being able to wear them on top of lipsticks or being able to wear them on their own. And the colors are really pretty, but just in general, this is a really remarkable formula that I have really enjoyed. And then Lisa Eldridge came out with a new lipstick line that is called Rouge Experience, and it is in a very nice, lovely lipstick case that is all metal. And including that is that these refills that go into here, it's all metal, it's all aluminum, it doesn't have any plastic in it, it's not a mixed product, and so it's totally recyclable. And I do think that in terms of the experience of using these lipsticks, because the case is so gorgeous, I think that this is really fantastic. And I think that the lipsticks themselves are okay. I think that in terms of the formula, I really prefer strongly the Luxuriously Lucent formula. And I think I also kind of prefer the matte formula of hers, the velvet formula. But I think that this formula is pretty good also. And I think that hopefully she eventually will release a few more shades in this, or maybe a lot of different shades will be fit into this case. And then Merit came out with a whole new line of lipsticks, and these are called the Signature Matte Lipsticks, and I think that these have been really fantastic. And that as matte lipsticks go, I think that these look really gorgeous on my lips, and that they are very moisturizing, and they are very wearable. And so I do have a few other brands of matte lipsticks that I have liked, but I think this one is probably at the top of the heap, and especially since it's affordable enough to be able to buy some different shades, I have really, really enjoyed it. And then one of the new lipsticks that I have worn the most, and that I've purchased several different shades in so far, are the new NARS Explicit lipsticks. And I think that in terms of the formula, this has been really, really terrific for me, and that they have had an awful lot of really interesting colors that I have found to be really wearable. And I really do appreciate the fact that I can go to Sephora and Ulta and to look and see some of the different colors and to find out better than I would online whether or not they will work out for me. And I do like the fact that this is a refillable container also, although unlike the Lisa Eldridge container, this is all plastic. But in general, in terms of it being a classic lipstick formula that is satin, that feels good on the lips, that holds up really well and looks good on the lips, I think that this is a real A+ release, and I've been wearing it an awfully lot. And then finally, in terms of my favorite releases of the year, last year RMS came out with a lipstick formula that I thought was absolutely superb, and they only came out with it in really bright colors, but this year they extended it, and it's actually its own line, I guess, because it's called the Nudes, and they extended it to 5 different neutral type colors that are very easy to wear. And so I ended up buying all 5 of these, and they seem like they're in very similar colors to one another, but they actually all look quite different on me, and I think that surprisingly all of them look absolutely terrific. And I really do love this formula. It feels really good on my lips. It goes on feeling a little bit wet, which is a little unusual, but it tastes good to me. It feels good to me. It goes on looking a little bit stronger in terms of the color, and then it wears down to a really pretty stain, which I think is also really attractive. And in terms of lipsticks that I feel good about putting on and that I actually do want to wear, this is really at the top of the heap, I think. It has real vanilla extract in it, and it does not have any plastics, and it doesn't have any silicones. And so I think that for a lipstick that performs this well, this is really a breakthrough not to have those ingredients in it. And then in terms of some of the other lipsticks that I have liked, Chantecaille and their Sunstone collection came out with some lip tints. And I had tried these a couple years ago, and I do really like that formula. And so I am always happy if Chantecaille has come out with some more of these because they're not always available. Dolce & Gabbana came out with a line of lipsticks called My Comfy Matte, and I do really like them, and I probably would have put them in terms of my top releases of the year, except that they have made it extremely difficult to try to figure out what shade you're getting in terms of ordering from their website or from retailer websites. And so far that has been really frustrating for me, but in terms of the formula itself, I do really like that. I do think there is some potential there. And then Isamaya also has one shade of a lipstick that fit into their penis-shaped lipstick container, and that one is called Cardinal. And in terms of lipstick formulas, I think that this may be my favorite formula on the market. It is such a bright red that I'm not really inclined to wear it on a regular basis, and so I'm not going to give that a top pick. But if they were to come out with more shades of that lipstick, then it for sure would be a top pick for me. And I think if you are a red lipstick wearer, then for sure this is one that is worth purchasing. And the price is $34, so I think that that's a reasonable price. And then Rabanne is a fairly new line of cosmetics that is available through Ulta. And Rabanne is owned by Puig, which also owns Charlotte Tilbury, and Byredo, and Dr. Barbara Sturm now. So many of the products that they sell do have fragrance in them, but one of the products that I tried that doesn't have fragrance in that I really did like was the Love Balm Lip Balm. And I think that this one is actually somewhat similar to the Isamaya formula. I do like the Isamaya formula better, but I think that these Rabanne ones come in kind of interesting colors, and so those have been worthwhile experimenting for me also. And then Skin by Kim came out with a line of lipsticks that are all in fairly muted shades that are all sort of leaning towards that concealer lips type of a look. And so I tried to pick one that I thought would be the most rosy, and it's still pretty neutral looking, but I do like that one a lot. And I think that especially if you're looking for that kind of a lipstick, that the formula for those lipsticks I found to be really, really good. And then Sarah Creel is a new company that came out with several different lip products. So the lipsticks actually look really nice and they feel really nice, but they contain a synthetic musk ingredient that had a smell that I did not find to be appealing at all. That is called ethylene brassylate. And the more that I used that lipstick, the more annoying it got, so I have given up on that one. But I do like the lip balm that she has, which is called The Adults Are Talking, and I think this one has been quite nice. But the thing about this is that it is very expensive and that I use it up very, very fast, and I'm not sure that it is better for my lips than a lot of other products that are on the market. And if I were going to choose between this one and the Augustinus Bader one in the clear version or the tinted versions, I think the Augustinus Bader one would be for sure my choice. And then she also has a lip primer that I tried out, and I am a big fan of the MAC Prep Plus Prime lip primer, and so I thought that this one might be a substitute for that without the vanilla in it. And I think this one has been okay, but I still think that the MAC one is working much better for me, so I'm going to stick with that MAC one, even though I wish it didn't have the vanilla scent in it. And then there are a few products that have a vanillin type scent, and I'm not really crazy about that, although I am willing to wear lipsticks like that on occasion. And a lot of people don't mind that scent at all, or they actually find it to be appealing. And so if you like that particular scent or don't mind it, then these would be good lipsticks to try. The first ones are the Lisa Eldridge Balm Embrace, which I think is a very hydrating, nourishing type of a product, but it does have that vanillin flavor in it, and so that's why I haven't used it too much. And then MAC came out with two different lines of lipsticks under the Maximal name. They came out with some matte lipsticks, and then they came out with some satin lipsticks, and the satin ones actually are made in Italy. And I think the satin ones are somewhat better, but that the matte ones are okay as well. And all of those have the typical MAC scent in them. But otherwise, I think that these are really almost as good as anything on the market in terms of how they look and in terms of how they feel and how well they go on. And of course, there's a lot of really good classic MAC shades that I tend to really like wearing on occasion. And then they have a few new shades as well. And Makeup by Mario came out with a line of lipsticks that they called Super Satin. And at first I didn't try those at all because they just listed fragrance on the ingredients. But finally I did give one a try, and I feel like that's really just like a vanillin scent that's about the same as, say, the MAC vanillin scent. And I did like the way that that lipstick performed and how it looked on my lips. And so I think that that could be an option for people that don't mind that kind of scent. Queen Musia sent me a lipstick to try out, and that's a fairly expensive lipstick for a brand that I had never heard of before that is new to the market. I thought that in terms of how it performed, I thought it looked fairly nice on my lips. I thought that it felt fairly nice on my lips. But I felt that the moment that I got it, and I think this was a fairly new lipstick to the market, it actually tasted a little rancid to me, and so that is not something that I found to be very appealing. So I haven't used that one very much. And then finally, in terms of liquid lip products, one of my favorite releases has been the Le Chouchou Lip Softening Balms from Edam. So there are 5 different versions of these. There is a clear one that does not have any flavor added to it that I think does taste very nice. And then there are 4 that do have kind of muted, pretty colors to them. And they all do have a flavor, but it seems that it is definitely a natural flavor. And it is one that I have actually found to be appealing. And they do seem to be slightly different for each flavor, but all of them seem to have been perfectly fine for me. And I do have all 5 versions of this. So I have really, really liked them. And they are ones that I think do look nice on my lips. They go on very nicely, and that they stay on very nicely. And they taste and feel really good. And then the final release that I have found to be particularly attractive has been the RMS lip oils. And so these came out towards the very end of the year, and I think that these have been really wonderful in terms of the quality of the ingredients in here. They do have, I think, bitter cherry oil, and they feel really good on my lips. They have a really nice vanilla, actual real vanilla flavor to them that I think tastes really good. And I think that they behave really well in that the way that this can pull out of the container, and you get this little pop, so it's removing most of the lip oil from the applicator. I don't feel like it's putting on too much of the product, and so I feel like I can put it on really easily. And then if I want to put on more, I can press it harder, and there's a little bit more like in a reservoir in there. And so in terms of how it behaves on my lips, I think it's really terrific. And I think the colors have been really great. So far I have just tried out the brighter colors, and they have worked out really well. But they also do have some that are more muted pink type colors, and then there's also a clear one. And then in terms of some other liquid lip products this year that I've really liked, the first one is from House Labs, and this is called the PhD Hybrid Lip Glaze. And I think that especially when it was first released, it was moving into summer, and I thought that this was really terrific. And I still think it looks really, really terrific on my lips. In terms of being hydrating, I think it is not as hydrating as some of these other products that I have really liked, but it seems to be fairly good for my lips, and I think it does have some peptides in it. But in terms of how it looks on my lips, I think that this is a really gorgeous product, and so that is worth considering just for that reason. And then I just got, just a couple days ago, the new NARS Afterglow lip oils, and I think that those are really, really terrific also, and those are not flavored. And I think that the one that I got is really pretty, and that in general NARS just does good release after good release, and I am very impressed with that. And then the other one that I've really liked is called the Lip Oasis from the Outset. And so the Outset is Scarlett Johansson's brand, and she said that she had always dreamed about having a lip gloss that would be very glossy and that would also be very moisturizing for her lips and that would not be irritating. And I do think it's the case that when I put on this lip gloss that my lips do look very, very glossy. And I also think that this has been really, really good for my lips. And so I don't mind wearing it for that reason at all. And then a few more other products that I tried out that I think have been fine. The Armani Prisma lip gloss, I think it's okay. I don't think that that has been as nourishing for my lips as I would prefer. But I think that it doesn't have any scent in it or flavor, and I think it's attractive. A little expensive for a lip gloss, though. And Clinique came out with a product called Pop Lip Plus Cheek Oil. I don't think it's a good idea to try to use this lip oil on the cheeks, but I think as a lip oil that this performs reasonably well, and it doesn't have a flavor in it, and it is in that black honey shade that I do personally find to be appealing. I tried the Jane Iredale Color Luxe Lip Glaze that was released at the end of the year. I did try it in a bright red shade, and I thought that considering how bright red it was a little bit messy in terms of how it went on. I think it probably would have worked better if I had chosen a color that wasn't quite so bright, but in general I thought it tasted fine to me and that it felt nice on my lips. And Ravi came out with a lip renewal treatment oil that reminds me a lot of that Outset one. This one from Ravi, it does have some vanillin flavor in it, and so that makes me like it a little bit less. And I'm not sure if the formula is quite as good as the Outset one, but I do think it's a very nice formula, and it is fairly similar in terms of the amount of glossiness that it has. And then a couple more products that I tried out that I thought were just okay. One was the Summer Fridays Dream Lip Oil, and that one is unscented, and I don't feel like it was especially good for my lips, but I think it was okay. It's not that I minded wearing it exactly. And then Tower 28 came out with a line called the Lip Softies, and supposedly these have food-grade flavorings in them. I didn't find them so objectionable that I was not unwilling to wear them ever, but I didn't really like the flavor all that much personally. And in terms of being good for my lips, I thought that they were okay, but I don't think that they were nearly as good as some of these other products that are on the market. And so here again is a list of my favorite 30 products for the year. And after I looked at this list for a while and thought about it, I do think it's fairly clear that, in my opinion, the top release for the year has been the RMS bronzers. And I think that these have been really sort of universally liked by everyone who has tried them in terms of creating a bronzy look that is really attractive and really easygoing. I think that this one has worked really, really well, and that they have come out with this particular shade, the Beach Walk Betty shade, that I do think works really, really well for a variety of skin tones and a variety of undertones and a variety of needs in terms of what people are looking for from a bronzer. And they do have 3 other shades that you can use if you're looking for a slightly different look. But in general, I think that it's pretty hard to go wrong with this bronzer, and I think it's been really terrific, and it is at a reasonable price point, and I think that in general it just is a wonderful product that I am really happy and pleased to see on the market. So thank you very much for watching all the way to the end of the video. And I am really hoping that you will share your favorite releases of the year with me in the comments section. And especially if you have tried things that I haven't tried, then I would really like to hear what those are so I can still think about picking those up. And in addition, if you like the products that I have mentioned here, or if you disagree with me about them, then please let me know about that. In addition, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, then I hope you will go ahead and do that. And if you have liked this video, then please hit like, because that supposedly helps the algorithm. And so thank you very much for watching, and Coco and I love you very much. So I hope that you are having a happy beginning of 2025. Goodbye.